Welcome to Code Acad. My name is Sami, and in this tutorial I'll show you how to create a simple one-screen chat app using Flutter and OpenAI GPT-3. With this app, user can send messages to the language model and receive responses in real time. And as a bonus, I will also be adding speech to text conversion, which will allow users to speak their message and have it transcribed by the app. And last but not least, I will also be adding a dynamic dark and light theme system to our app. So I hope there are a lot of things for you to learn. Without further ado, let's get started. Okay, let me navigate to my Flutter's projects directory where I keep my Flutter's project. Then I will create a new Flutter project from scratch. I will name it GPT Flutter. You can name it whatever you like. Okay, let's wait for this. Then I will just navigate to this projects directory by using cd command, and I will open this in VS Code. Okay, fine. I'll just enter into full screen. Okay, I'll open main.dot file. Okay, so this is a pre-built template that Flutter gives us. I will just select this all and delete it. Let's just import material.dart package from Flutter SDK. And let's start from our void main, our starting point function. I'll call runapp function, which is a Flutter function that takes a widget as an argument and renders it to the screen. In this case, the argument is an instance of the app class. I'll create a new stateless widget. I'll name it app that I have already passed into runapp, and this stateless widget will return a material app. I'll pass a center widget to this home argument, and then I'll pass a text widget to this center widget. Fine. This is temporary, we will change it later. And also put a constant keyword here for performance. Okay, fine. Let me just run my simulator, and I'll run this app. This will take some time, so I'll just cut some part from this video. This looks ugly. Let's just start working on this. I'll start from screens folder, and I'll create one file, chat screen, with the Dart extension. And of course we have to import material.dart as well. Once I import it, I'll create a new stateless widget. I'll name it chat screen. This will return a scaffold widget that provides a basic layout structure with common elements such as an app bar, a bottom navigation bar, and a floating action button. I'll pass an app bar that Flutter already gives us. And I'll pass some dummy center widget with a text to the body of a scaffold. Now that I have created a share screen widget, I'll go to our main file and I'll pass this widget into the home argument of material app. Let's hot reload it. Now, yeah, it looks fine. Now I'm gonna work on themes. I'm going to pass theme data to the theme argument of material app to define our light theme data. I'll use theme data dot light dot color scheme dot copy with. This copy with function will let us define our own colors, but we will not override those colors that Flutter already gives us with light theme. I will define some colors that I'm gonna use throughout the app for light and dark themes. Flutter gives us two kinds of theme arguments with material app. One is theme and one is dark theme. So if you want to change data of a light theme, you have to pass theme data to the theme argument, and if you want to change the data of dark theme, you have to pass theme data to the dark theme and then work accordingly to change those themes. As you can see that I have defined this color scheme both in theme and dark theme. This color scheme will let us use multiple colors in our app. I have used four different colors for this purpose. Primary will be our main color for the theme, and on primary will be the color that we are going to use on the foreground for the primary color. I mean, if the primary color is white, then on the foreground should be black color, because black looks fine on the white background. So, and the same goes for secondary and on secondary, which is our secondary color for our theme. We can use theme mode argument to set the theme, the active theme. I'll set it to dark. Let's run our app and test it. Yeah, we are fine here. I will also remove this debug banner. To remove this banner, just set debug show checked mode banner to false. Now I'm going to move this theme data into its own file so that our main file would be lean. So let's create one constants folder and one themes file in it with a Dart extension. As usual, we need this material.dart package from Flutter SDK. Then I am going to declare one new final variable named light theme, and I'll go to main file. I'll just move this light theme data, and I'll just paste it here. I'm going to do the same for the dark theme. I'll go to the main dot file and move dark theme data into its own file. Finally, I will use those global variables named light theme and dark theme into our main file. And I will also put constant keyword in front of chat screen. Let's also check our light theme. It looks fine. I'll just change it back to dark theme. Let's work on AppBar. I'll set the title to text, and the text will be Flutter GPT. You can name it what you like. I will also pass text style to the style argument to set the color of this title. To set the color, I am going to use theme dot of context. This will give us the color from our active theme. We cannot just say that colors dot red. We cannot use some constant color, because if we do that, if I just say colors dot red or color dot black or white, then if I change our theme from dark to light or light to dark, our color will be constant. What I want the color from our active theme. If our theme is dark, our text color should be white. If the theme is light, then the text color should be black. Now we will add one icon to the app bar, which will show us the active theme, and one switch that will let us change the theme. To achieve this, we have to use a row, because we want our icon and switch horizontally side by side, and to align children horizontally, we have to use row. I'll pass a dark mode icon to the icon for the time being, and I'll use size box to get some space between icon and switch. I'll use switch.adaptive so that it will adapt according to the device it is running on, because the switch on iOS and Android looks different. I'll pass true to the value. Don't worry, I'll change it. I'll come back to this onChanged callback function. Let's encapsulate this app bar into its own dot file. I'll first create a widgets folder and one app bar file with dart extension. Let's grab this app bar widget and move it into its own my app bar file. I'll first have to import material.dart, and then I will just create a stateless widget. I will name it my app bar. This stateless widget will return our app bar, which we can use everywhere. Let's use our app bar into our chat screen widget. But this won't work, because if we want our my app bar to use into our scaffold widget, our my app bar widget must implement preferred size widget. When you implement preferred size widget, you also have to override preferred size method, which will return the size of our app bar. I will use a size dot from height. We just have to change its height, and yeah, it's never bad idea to make it constant. Now we are good to go. Now let's go for a Riverpod state management. I will create a new folder providers which will hold all of our providers files, and I will create active theme provider dart file. So before I go ahead, I'll just explain what's going on. Basically, what we are going to do, we are not going to change our theme from light to dark or from dark to light using set state, but what we are going to do is to use Riverpod state management. And I'm not going to explain completely Riverpod, because if I just start explaining from start to end, it will take a lot of time. I don't think this is the purpose of this tutorial, but yeah, I'll slightly touch those providers that we will be using in this project. One is a state provider, and second one is state notifier provider. But first, let's add Riverpod to our project. To add it, you have multiple options. You can go to pub.dev, where you can search for Riverpod package, and then just copy the dependency and add it into the pubspec.yaml file. And you can also go to the terminal of VS Code, where you can just use a command flutter pub add flutter Riverpod, but I'm not going for that. I will press Command Shift P. On Windows, it is Control Shift P, and then I will search for add dependency and click on it and search for Flutter Riverpod and click on it. This will take some time to be added into our project. Now that I have added a Flutter Riverpod package into our application, we can use it by importing Flutter Riverpod. I'll first create one final global variable which will hold provider. Our first provider is state provider, which is one of the providers from Riverpod's package. You can access this provider everywhere, and you can also change its value. And once you change its value, those widgets which are listening to this provider will be rebuilt. You don't have to use set state. You just have to define state provider globally, like we did this here, and then throughout your app you can listen to this provider from any widget. State provider takes one callback function, and this returns one ref object. What's this ref object? If your provider depends on some other provider, then you can use this ref object to listen to that provider that your state provider or your provider depends on. In this case, our state provider does not depend on any provider, so I will not use this ref widget. You can use underscore instead of this ref, but I'm okay with this. Let's create an enum. I'll name it themes. This enum will hold two possible values, dark and light, for our theme. and then I'll just return themes.dark in our stage provider. This stage provider's default value will be themes.dark, and the type of our state provider will of course be themes. Let's import Flutter Riverpod.dart, and then just convert this stateless widget into a consumer widget that Riverpod provides. This is because we need a widget ref object in our widgets tree provided by consumer widget. We will use this ref object to listen to active theme provider that we have just created. To do this, we can say that ref.watch, and we will pass active theme provider. And then we can just use the variable that we just created, active theme. Instead of theme mode.dark directly, we can set this theme based on condition. If the active theme is theme.dark, then our theme will be dark, else it will be light. And one most important thing, in order to let your widget use providers, your root level widget must be wrapped inside a provider's scope widget. Let's try it out. We are fine here. And now we will start working on this switch. Before I start working on this switch, I will just create a new Dart file named theme underscore switch.dart. I'll just encapsulate this switch.adaptive to its own file. Let me just import material.dart. I'll create one stateful widget because the state of this switch changes, and then I will name it theme switch, and this theme switch will return our switch.adaptive. Move from our file into this widget. And I do need a Flutter Riverpod as well in this theme switch. So I'll just import this. And then I'll make this theme switch consumer stateful widget. It should be stateful, okay? There are different consumers that are provided by Riverpod. Let's set our active color of switch. We will use a secondary color of our theme. Let's go to my AppBar and just use a theme switch in this row. Yeah, our secondary color works. Let's start working on this onChanged callback function. This callback function will gives us one value of type boolean. We will use ref.read this time, not watch. Basically, we don't want to listen to the state of our active theme provider, so I'm going to use a read. And to read, you have to use a dot notifier to access the state, and then if the value is true, then we will set the theme to the dark, and if the value is false, then the theme will be light. But for the value argument, I am going to use ref.watch because the value argument should listen to the changes. If the value of active theme provider changes, and if this is equal to themes.dark, and the value will be true, else it will be false. Yeah, it works. We can change our theme by using the switch. Let me just create a toggle theme method. I'll just encapsulate the onChange anonymous function to its own toggle theme function. And of course, this toggle theme function should be in the state class so that it can use the ref object. Let's set this icon based on active theme, but this time I'm not gonna use a consumer stateful or a consumer widget, but I'm gonna use consumer builder. We use consumer builder for performance. If you don't want to rebuild your entire tree, if some value changes from a provider, then you can just use consumer builder. I will set the icon based on the active theme by using ref.watch. I'll check if the active theme is equal to themes.dark, then I'll set the icon to icons.dark mode, and if it is light, then the icon will be icons.light mode. In this case, this consumer builder is of no use because this A bar will rebuild anyway because of its color. If the theme is changed, its color will also change, so this entire A bar will be rebuilt. Let's try it out to check if our icon changes according to the theme. Okay, we are good to go. And I will use const keyword for performance. Let's just get rid of this dummy center widget. I will create a new column widget. This column will hold one list view and one text field. I will create one expanded widget because I am going to use list view inside a column, and since both list view and column does not have its a specific height, both have unbounded height, so I will get an exception if I don't wrap our list view inside some column or expanded that has bounded height. I will pass some dummy text to our list view. I'll make the count 30 for the time being. And also let's just create a text and voice field widget that we can use to send a request to the OpenAI. Okay, let's create a new file in our widgets folder. I will name it text and a voice field with Dart extension. And I'll create a new stateless widget. I'll name it text and voice field. You can name it whatever you like. This widget will return a row, and in this row we will be having a text field and one elevated button. And also let's just fix this. Let's make it const. Let's get back to our. Okay, so this text field is giving me an exception. This is because this is inside a row, so I'll wrap it inside an expanded widget. And then I'll set the decoration to input decoration, and the border should be outline input border, and border radius should be border radius dot circular, and I'll pass 12. And also let's just wrap this text and voice field into a padding. And we need some space from bottom. I'll add a sized box, and I'll set the height to 10. I'll try it. Okay, let's make the padding 12. Looks fine. Okay, there's some issue with my setting. I'll just set it. Okay, fine. And also let's set the cursor color. We will use on primary color from our active theme. And yeah, we should also set the focus border. It should be the same. Let's make it outline input border. You can just also use the same outline input border that we used for border. You can encapsulate that, but I'm just going for this. I'll set the color from our theme. I'll use the on primary color. Yeah, this is the same issue. We are set here, and let's also set the border radius, that is 12. And let's get some space between our text field and our icon button. I will add a sized box, and let's just create our new file. I'll name it toggle button with a Dart extension. I'll import material.dart from Flutter SDK. I'll create one stateful widget, and I'll name it toggle button. And this toggle button is going to return one elevated button. And let's set the icon to the send for the time being. We'll change it. Okay, so just open text canvas and we will add this toggle button into our row. It looks bad. I want a circular elevated button, so I'll set the style to elevated button dot style from. I'll set the background color secondary, our secondary color from our theme, and I'll also set the foreground color to on secondary. Of course, if the background is secondary, then the foreground should be on secondary, and this is what I wanted. And then I will set the shape to get the circular shape. I'll set to circle border, and let's also add some padding. I will just add some padding of 15. Yeah, it's fine now. This elevated button will be a mic button if the text field is empty, and it will be send button if the text field is not empty. To achieve this, let's create an enum. I will name it input mode with two possible values, text and voice. And next, let's work on this toggle button to achieve the functionality I just mentioned. This toggle button will require input mode. I'll first make this required to be passed from our text and voice field. First of all, let's check if the input mode is text, then the icon should be send. And if the input mode is voice, then the icon should be mic. And let's make this text and voice field stateful, because I'm gonna work with set state method in this widget. Let me create an input mode variable. By default it will be voice, because we know by default the text field will be empty. Then let's just pass this input mode to our toggle button. And finally, let's start working on this onChanged name argument of text field, which takes a callback function and returns a value. We will check this value. If it is empty, then I will set the input mode to voice, and if it is not empty, then I will set the input mode to text. I will create a new method. I'll name it set input mode. This method will take one input mode argument of type input mode. And of course this set input method should be inside our state class. I will set the current input mode to the argument that has been passed to this method. Now we can use this set input mode into our text field. And we will pass input mode based on condition. Let's check if we did the right thing. Okay, let me check. Yeah, it works. Now I'm going to create a controller for our text field. You must dispose your text editing controller, and you can dispose it using one of the lifecycle method named dispose. Now I will get rid of this dummy text widget that I had passed into our list view. I'm gonna create a new chat item.dart file. I'll create a new stateless widget into this file. I'll name it chat item. This chat item will return a row. And it requires two things. One is a text of type string, and one is me of type boolean. And we will set the alignment of the row based on the condition if the message is me or not, because we want if the message is from a user, it means is me should be true. Then we want the alignment to the end of the screen, to the right. And if the message is from the OpenAI or from the server, then it should be aligned to the start or left of the screen. and I will create a container widget. I've set the width and height to 40, and I'm also gonna set the decoration, and the decoration should also be based on condition. I think it is clear that why I am using this is me. If is me is true, then the color of our container should be our secondary color. Else it should be gray with a shade 800. And finally, I am going to use this chat item into our list view. I'll pass just dummy text. I'll say this is me or something, and let's make is me true. Okay, this works. It's aligned to the end. If I make it false, let me check it out. Yeah, fine. It's aligned to the start. Let's go to our chat item. We have got some other works to do, and I'm going to set the radius of our container, and this should also be based on the condition, if it is me or not, if it is from the user or not. I'll set the top left to circular 10. Let be the top right to be 10 as well, and the bottom left should be based on the condition. If is me is true, then the bottom left should be 0, else it should be 15. And the bottom right should be also based on condition. If is me is true, then it should be 15, else it should be 0. And let's make these two constant. We can make it. Yeah, fine. It worked. We are fine here. And now let's just work on the child of this container. And we are using this is me a lot. Let's set the icon of this container. If is me is true, then I'll set it to a person icon. You can set it any icon you want. I will go with person, and if it is not from a user, then the icon will be icons.computer. Yeah, it's okay. And let's go to chat screen. Let's check it. I think this color should also be white. Let's change this color. When the theme is light, the icon's color should be white as well on the container. Let's change the color of our icon. I will set this icon to the on secondary. which is white on both light and dark. And let's also set the alignment of this container so that the children should be aligned to the center. I'll set the alignment to the center. And next I am going to create another container inside the row. First I'll set the decoration. This container will be used for a message that will show a message. I'll set the box decoration. I'll set the color. If it is me, then the color should be secondary, which is a deep orange on light and gray blue on dark. And if it's not me, then the color should be gray dot shade with 800. Let's just check it out. I will pass false value. Okay, fine, it works. And yeah, we also have to set the radius of this container. I'll set the top left to the radius dot circular, and I'll pass 15. And I'll do the same for top right. But I'll do a different thing for the bottom left that we did for another container. This will be based on condition. We will use a circular radius. We will pass 15 if isme is true, and if isme is false, then I'll pass 0. And if isme is true, then the bottom right should be 0, else it should be 15. This contains child has to be a text because it is a off-tap message. We will show a message in this container. I'll pass just a text into this child that will be passed from text and voice field. And I'll also set the style of this container. I'll set the style of this text using text style, and I'll also set the color. I'll use on secondary color from our theme. Okay, this looks ugly. We'll work on this. Let's just also extract this container into its own widget because we will be using this container based on a condition. I'll name it profile container if it's okay. Okay, I'll check if is me is true, then I don't want this profile container to be rendered. I will also put some space with width 15, and this should also be based on a condition because we don't want some extra spaces. And at the end I'll check if the message is from a user, which means is me will be true. I'll first create a sized box with width of 15. I will also check if is me is true, then I want the profile container to be rendered. You will see this into action. Okay, this is what I wanted. And yeah, it looks good now. And also let's just add some margin, and for that I am going to wrap the row into a container. Okay, it looks okay. There's still some padding missing. Let me set the horizontal 12. Okay, it looks fine. Now I'll check one more thing. I will just work on this dummy data that we passed to the chat item. Let me just say this is me, this is me, this is me. Okay, we don't want our message to take full width. We just want the message to take 60% of width maximum. So what I can do, let me just add a padding to this container. And this is the thing that we need. We will work on the constraint argument. We'll pass a box constraint, and we will use media query to get the size of our current device, and I'll say it should be 60% of the width of a device. It looks good now. Let me check it for true. Okay, fine. It looks okay for light theme as well. And also let's just remove these. We don't need this. Then I will create one new model folder and one chat model file. and I need to import material dot from Flutter SDK to. I will use this immutable annotation. This is used to declare a class as being immutable, which means that once an object of the class is created, its properties cannot be changed. Okay, so I have created a chat model with three properties, ID, message, and is me, and then I will create a constructor, and I will make these three properties to be required. And then I will create a new file for our chat provider. This time I'll create a custom state notifier class called chat notifier. This state notifier is provided by Riverpod, which helps manage state in our Flutter application. And the constructor of the chat notifier class is called when the notifier is first created, and I'll initialize the state with an empty list. The class takes a generic type of a list of chat models, which represents the data that will be stored in the notifier. And then I'm going to add method to this class, and this will be used to add a new chat model to the list of chats stored in the notifier. Since our providers are immutable, we cannot just say update or something. We have to reassign some state to this old state, and I do this by using the spread operator to create a new list with the new chat models added to it. When you say state is equal to, this will automatically notify its listeners, and then I will create a new instance variable named chat provider. This provider is responsible for providing the chat notifier to other parts of the Flutter application. And the state notifier provider takes two generic types. The first one is the chat notifier, and the second one is the data type, a list chat model that the notifier will hold. And the state notifier provider is initialized by passing a function that creates a new instance of the chat notifier when called. I'll first go to chat screens file. Okay, this time I will wrap this list view into a consumer builder. This time this consumer builder is of a lot of views because we don't want to rebuild our entire scaffold widget if some value of a list view changes. If a value of a list view changes, then only the list view should be rebuilt, not the entire scaffold widget. I'll first create a chats variable, and then I'll use a ref.watch, and I'll pass chats provider to this. I used a ref.watch because we want to listen to changes as well. Let's use these chats into our list view. I'll say chats and the current index, and I'll access the message. And I'll do the same for is me. Okay, it's giving me an exception. Okay, this is because I just forgot the item count. I'll set it to chairs.length. Let's try it. Okay, so since our list is empty, there will be no messages. Let's go to text and voice field. Let's go to toggle button. This toggle button will require two callback functions. One will be for sending a text message, and second one will be for converting voice to text, and then sending that text to the AI or OpenAI something. We will see that later, and we will make this required. Okay, now let's just work on these callback functions. I'll create a new method. Send text message. This will require a string name message. And then we'll pass this send text message to the toggle button. And let's pass our message controller.text to this send text message method. And also let's just create another method, a name send voice message. This will be also passed to toggle button. Okay, so now we will start working on integration of a GPT with our application. Let me just open a Chrome browser, and I'll just move this to the right. Okay, first let's search for ChatGPT SDK Flutter. You can find this SDK in pub.dev. To work with a GPT, we need an API key from OpenAI. Let's go to this site, and I'll just generate an API key. I have already logged in, so if this site requires you to log in, and just log in. I already created one, so I'll just revoke the old one. Okay, so then I will go for this command p approach to add this dependency into our project. Let's just wait. And then I will create a new folder. I'll name it services, and in this services I will create a new file, name AI handler with a Dart extension. And yeah, I need to import a GPT SDK as well. There are still some bugs present in this SDK, and I hope they will fix those bugs in future. I'll create a new class. I'll name it AI handler, and you can name it what you prefer. Then I will create an instance of OpenAI. This build method is used to configure the API client, such as setting the API token and the base options. I think I have not copied my API key. Let me just go to the site and I will create a new one. Then I'll just copy it and I will come back. And let's paste it. Yeah, so just put a token because this is a named argument. I'll set the base option to HTTP setup, which allows us to configure various properties of the API client, such as receive timeout, and I'll set the receive timeout to be 20 seconds. This base option is a property of this OpenAI class, which allows you to configure various options for the API client, and HTTP setup is a class that is used to configure various properties of the API client. This HTTP setup provides a way to set up various options for the API client, such as the timeout for receiving the response from the API. So in this code, the HTTP setup class is used to configure the timeout for receiving the response from the API, and the base option property is used to pass the configuration to the OpenAI instance. And then yeah, when the instance of this OpenAI is not needed, we should dispose it. So I'll create a new method. I'll name it dispose, and then I'll say OpenAI dot close. And last but not least, I'll create a method of type future. I'll name it get response, and this will take one argument. It will be a message of type string, and I will make it async since this will be asynchronous. And yeah, it should return a string, not void. And then I am going to use try and catch block. This SDK still contains bugs. We have to catch those bugs. I'll first create a request object of type complete text, which is provided by GPT SDK, and this is used to complete a given text prompt. So what we will do, we will pass a message to this complete text. The prompt property is set to the value of the message parameter, and the model property is set to K translate model v3. V3 means this model means that we are using GPT-3 model. Then I will say OpenAI dot on complete text. This on complete text method of the OpenAI takes a request object that we just created, and this will return the response in a asynchronous manner. And then I'll check if the response is not null. Then I'll say since this response returns a list of choices, so if I want to access the response to our message, I will access the 0 index to 1, and then I'll use this trim method to remove any leading or trailing white spaces from the text. And if this is null, then I'll return something went wrong. If there's some error from the server side, then I will return bad response, because as I said, there are still some bugs, and I hope they'll fix those bugs. And then I'll just go to our text and voice field class. I'll first just create an instance of our AI handler that we just created. And then let's just not forget to dispose this into our dispose method. Now let's just start working on this send text message. Okay, so first of all we need a chats provider. So for that I'll just make this stateful widget consumer stateful widget. And I'll import this Riverpod package. And in this text we just have to read, not watch. So I'll say chats provider dot notifier. And first of all, what we want to do, we have to add the message to the list. So I'll say chats dot add and just pass the chat model. I'll set the ID to datetime.now, and I will convert this to string. Since the datetime is unique, so it's fine. And to the message argument, I'll pass message, and yeah, of course it is from the user, so I'll set the isme to true. And then we will use the OpenAI instance that we just created, and then we will pass the message to the get response method of OpenAI instance. And let's just create another method to add the message to the list. So I'll say wire add to list. This will require one message of type string and a boolean value and one ID of type string. I'll say final chats ref.read chats provider.notifier, and then I can just say that I did above chats.add, and I'll pass chat model with ID. I'll pass message to the message, and I'll pass isme to isme. And we don't need this, so I'll just cut it out. I'll just use this method add to list, and I'll pass a message, and let me rename it to add to chat list. I think chat list is more appropriate. And let's just pass the ID, and the ID should be datetime.now, and let's convert it to string. And once I get the response, I'll add the response to the chat list as well. And since this is a response from our server, so I'll pass false to isme, and I'll set the ID to datetime.now, and I'll convert this to string. Let's make this method async. And I have to await for this get response because this is asynchronous. Let's just save it. I'll open a toggle button widget. So first I'll check if the input mode is set to text, and then I'll pass the reference of a send text message. And if the input mode is set to voice, then I'll pass the reference of send voice message. Let's try it out. Okay, I'll say, hey, how are you? There's something wrong. Why is the message empty? Let's check it out. I think I'm missing something. Let's go to our text and voice field. Let me check if I'm missing something. Text field. Yeah, I'm not setting the controller. Let's set this controller to our message controller. Now let's try it out if it works. Let me send the same message. Yeah, this works fine. The response is good. I'm doing well, thank you. How about you? And I think once the message is sent, this text field should be empty. So let's work on this. I'll go to toggle button where I pass this callback function, and before I clear our controller.text, I have to save the value. Let's say final message, and I'll save the controller text value to this message, and then I'll say message controller.clear. Let's pass this message to send text message. Check it out. Let's ask what is dart. Yeah, fine, it works. Our text field is empty now. One more thing, the icon of this material button should be reset to mic when the message is sent, and when the response is being sent by the server, this elevated button should be deactive. So let's just start working on this. I'll go to toggle button. I'll create a new bool variable. I'll say is replying, and then we will make it required to be passed from text and voice field widget. And I know I'm using a lot of set state here. You can use Flutter hooks as well if you want to, but I'm fine using it. And to set the elevated button deactive, I'll just check if is replying is true. If it is true, I'll just pass null, which will automatically set the button to deactive. And then come back to our text and voice field. In here, I'm going to create the same variable, bool is replying, and then I'll come back to our text and voice field. Then I'll just create one bool variable. I'll say var underscore is replying, and I'll set it to false. Okay, so let's pass this to our toggle button. And then what I'll do, I'll go to send text message. When I send the message, I'll set the state of is replying to true. This will automatically trigger the toggle button as well to change its state. And I'll set the is replying back to false once the response is sent. But I think it is better to create a new method for this purpose. So I'll create a set replying state method which will require one argument of type bool, and then this method will set our private is replying to this passed argument. And let's just use this set replying state method into our send text message. Finally, let me just hot reload it. Let's check it out. I'll say hey, explain Firebase. Fine, it worked. The button got disabled, and it also gets enabled when the response is sent. Yeah, this is what I was talking about. This bad response, this is what we catched. There are still some bugs in this chat SDK. I hope they will fix those. Let's ask again. Hey, explain Firebase. Let's wait. Yeah, this time it worked. Did you see the bug? And yeah, the icon should be reset to the mic icon. Let's just start working on this too. So what I'll do, once the message is sent, I'll set the input mode to voice. This will automatically update the icon. Let's just try it out. Great, the icon is reset to mic. And then what I'll do, I'll add a typing message to our list once the message is sent. And isme should be false since this is from a server. I'll set the ID to typing so that we can easily delete it back using this ID. Let's go to our chats provider file. I'm gonna create a new method. I'll name it remove typing. This method is going to delete all those chats whose ID is equal to typing. So once the message is sent to the server, we want to show a typing message into our list, and once the response is sent by the server, then we have to remove the typing back. So this method is going to delete that typing message back. Let's call remove typing method once we get the response. Don't worry, I'm gonna create this remove method. Next, let's just define this remove typing method. I'll say final chats equal to ref.read chats provider.notifier. Now we will use this chats to call the remove typing method. Let's try it out. I'll send the message to the server. I'll say what is JDK and then send it. Fine, this typing is showing, but there is a typo. I'll fix it. This typing did not go away. Let's check what I am doing wrong. Okay, this is because of this double I with typing that I used for ID. Yes. Let's just try it one more time. And yeah, I'll remove this typo too. Fine, this time the typing message is removed once we get the response. Great, till here. Now I'm gonna work on speech to text conversion. To convert our speech to text, I am going to use this speech to text package. I recommend you to go through this readme file. I have already read this. And let's install this package into our Flutter application. I will press Command Shift P and I will search for speech underscore to underscore text and I'll add it. And for Android, our compile SDK version must be set to 31. I'll go to build.gradle file of Android and I'll set the compile SDK version to 31. And one more thing, we also have to set the min SDK version to 21. And since we are using a microphone of our device, so we need to add some permissions too. Okay, so for Android, I will just copy these 5 and I'll just go to Android manifest.xml file and I'll just paste those permissions between this manifest tag. Since our target SDK version is higher than 29, so we need this query also to be added to our manifest file. For Android, this package automatically plays system sounds when we start listening or stop listening, But for iOS, if you want to add these sounds, you have to create a new folder, name assets, and then you can add those sounds that you prefer, and just rename those sounds as specified here. Then this package will automatically set those sounds for iOS as well. Now let's just add these two permissions to our info.p list for iOS. I'll create a new key tag, and I'll just paste this NS speech recognition usage description, and I'll add one string to show to the user that why do we need this permission. And then copy this second permission and go to info.plist, add this permission into the key tag, and you can create a string. The string is up to you, whatever you want to show to the user. I'll say this app needs access to your microphone to record audio. Since this package deals with our device low-level details, so I have to quit this application and restart it. So this will take effect. And then I will create a new Dart file. I'll name it voice_handler.dart into our services. And I have to import a speech to text package. Let's create a class. I'll name this class voice handler. This class will be responsible for converting speech to text. First of all, I need an instance of a speech to text. And I will create one bool variable. I will name it speech enabled, and by default it will be false. If we want to use speech to text into our application, we have to initialize this speech to text only one time. So I'll create one method. I'll name it init speech. This method will be async. When this speech to text is initialized, this will return a boolean value. If the value is false, then it means the device does not support a microphone, or for some reason the user did not allow the permission. I'll create one getter method for a speech to text. And I'll also create one getter method for speech enabled. Now let's come to our main method, which will be responsible for converting voice to text, and this will be of type future. I'll name it start listening. And of course this should return a string. This method will start listening for speech by calling the listen method of speech to text. When a speech is recognized, the on result callback will be triggered, which will return us a result. This result holds multiple results. So I'll check if the result is final result, then I'll do something with this result. Then I'm going to create an instance of a completer class, which is from a Dart async library. We can use this object to complete when the speech is recognized. The await keyword in this case will not work. If you put await before speech to text, the result, so what we want when the speech is recognized, then we will return the result. And I can do this by using the complete method of this completer, and I'll pass the recognized words of result to this complete method of completer. And finally you have to return completer.future. And once we are done with speech, so we have to stop listening for speech. For this purpose I'm going to create one new method. I'll name it stop listening. This will be of type future too, and we can stop by saying speech to text dot stop. Okay, we are done from this side. Now I'll go to our text and voice field. First I'll create an instance of this voice handler. And then I'll use the init state to initialize this voice handler when this widget is first initialized. When this widget is first initialized, and then let's go to our send voice message method. Okay, so first I'll use this voice handler instance variable, and I'll use this to get speech to text instance to check if it is already listening. Then I'll call stop listening of our voice handler. And if it is not listening, then let's go and I'll create one result variable. And then I will call a start listening method of our voice handler, and I have also used await keyword with this. Once I get the result will be saved to the result variable, and then I can simply use our send text message to pass the result. Let's just try it out. Okay, it is asking for permissions. I'll allow it. There is some problem. The problem is that I'm on a MacBook and this speech to text does not support Mac. So I'm going to use my real device. Let me just share the screen of my real device. On MacBook I can just use the command scrcpy. Fine. This is my Android device. Let me just run the application. I will allow all the permissions. Hey, how are you? Okay, this looks amazing. It just worked. Now let's start working on this elevated buttons icon. Now what I want when the speech is listening, the icon should be mic off, and when it's not listening, the icon should be mic on. I'll go to toggle button. First I will declare one is listening a boolean variable. And I will make it required. As I already discussed this, that I am using this set state allowed. You can use Flutter hooks as well if you are comfortable with that, but I am fine with this. I am going to set this mic icon based on the condition. I'll check if is listening is set to true, then the icon should be set to mic off, else it should be mic on, which is simply mic. Now let's go to our text and voice field. I'll just copy this set replying state, because the next method that I am going to create will be the same like this one with some changes only. And then I'll create one new variable. I'll name it is listening. By default it will be false. And then just pass this is listening to our toggle button. Now come to our set listening state method. I'll just change these variables to is listening. Then in a send voice message, when we come to else part, I will first set listening state to true. And after stop listening, I will set the set listening state to false. And there is one more thing. There is something I want to tell you people. If we call our start listening method of our voice handler, and we just sit silently, we do nothing, we don't call stop listening, then the device iOS or Android will automatically stop the listening. I think for Android it would be 10 seconds if I am not wrong. When this happens, our set listening state won't be set to false, so our buttons icon will still be set to mic off, even the speech to text won't be listening. What I'll do, I'll also set this listening state to false after the listening. But this set listening state in if condition is not required, because if I explicitly stop the listening. This set listening state will be set to false after start listening, so this is not required to be set into false condition, but I'll use this in both cases. For more information, I already suggested that you should read the readme file of speech to text. Now let's see this in action. What is Flutter? Okay, fine. So the icon changes when the speech is listening, and it changes back when the speech stops listening. Let me just ask using this text field, Flutter versus React Native. This bug. Let me just repeat the same question. Flutter versus React Native. I hope this bug will be fixed by them. What is I can say, what is React.js? I hope this time it will work. Yeah, but I hope this bug will be fixed. And I just missed some things. This profile container should be aligned to the end, not to the center. So first I'll go to chat item. Then I'll go to the row and I'll set the cross axis alignment to be cross axis alignment dot end. Okay, it looks fine now. Next thing, we know that chat applications are not aligned like this. We want our list view to be aligned to the end, so I'll align this entire list to the end of our device screen. And to achieve this, I'll first go to our chat screen, and then I'll use the reverse property of our list view, and I'll set it to true. Let's check it out. But now our recent message should be at the bottom, not at the top. Now I will just reverse this list, but this reverse will give you iterator. What we want is a list, so I'll say dot to list to convert this back to our list. Now one more thing. I'll just handle this exception too. Handling this exception is easy because we already have a speech enabled variable for this purpose. We already have created one is enabled method in our voice handler, so I'll use that in our send voice message. I'll simply print not supported. You can do whatever you want. You can show some snake bar or some dialogue, but I'm not going for that. I'll just print not supported. Let's try it out. Fine, the exception is successfully handled. And that's it for today's tutorial. I hope you found it informative and learned something new. And if you did, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to stay updated on my latest videos. Until next time, stay happy. See you in the next video.